So I'm really just trying to work on being more open and honest. I think that is what is going to teach people the best. When I first started this whole thing, I still don't even want to do it. It's so much work. I have so much on my plate. I truly felt God was leading me to do this. And I made this covenant with myself and with God that I was going to try my best to not just like try to produce content, but I wanted to make sure that everything I did was me just reflecting what God is showing me in real time as I live my life out, and just teaching everybody else what I'm going through. I'm in no way like somebody superior in this. I am a new convert. I've only been walking with the Lord for about a year and a half. Even though I grew up in the church and I have a lot of knowledge about the church, I'm still growing in my knowledge with God and my relationship with God. So this entire thing was always supposed to be about me being transparent with you guys and what's going on with my life. And that's really hard and it's really difficult. And so I joined a podcast and I shared my full testimony, and I put a lot of personal details on there. And immediately after, I felt like this heavy attack, and I couldn't help but feel this heavy like burden. It felt like shame was being reintroduced, and I had let go of all that shame. I have confessed all these things to several people along my walk, along my journey, but somehow I was brought back to this like level of shame, and I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't understand why it was happening or why I was coming back. And I think part of it is because I'm still struggling with sin. You know, it's not like the struggle isn't there. There's still a struggle. And I felt like the enemy was just whispering in my ear that I was, a liar, or I was fake. I had like a sense of imposter syndrome, and I felt like this shame trying to come back, and I just felt like, many of you guys might feel that way. The work is never finished for us, guys. As long as we're on earth, the work is not finished. We're going to continue battling and we're going to continue fighting. You're never going to arrive. And I think that's what God was really showing me. In the moment that I was feeling all this, I almost made a really bad decision. I almost made a decision that would really put me back into a state of mind that I used to be in before I came back to the Lord. And the temptation was so heavy and so real. And there was just this moment where I was really tempted, and God really spared me. And in that moment, I called a friend right away and I confessed it immediately, because I know the danger of hiding and the danger of being shameful and having closed doors and nobody can see into your life. And you have all these secrets, and it becomes like a weighted bondage. And so I immediately called a friend up, and this whole week I've just been battling with this heaviness, and I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I wanted to just be completely open and honest with it, because I know that many of you guys are probably going through similar things. And there's a lot of other things that are going on in my life. I recently going through a breakup, and that has its weight. And I'm actually so extremely happy, because back in the day, a breakup would have killed me, and I would have for sure gone back into the world. But I see the work of God in my life, because even though, yes, I have gone through a breakup, and yes, it's hard, I am still sticking to the Lord, and I am fighting through this. And I'm not perfect, and I never try to act like I'm perfect. But I think there's something to hold on to in the fact that I can see that God is still holding on to me, and he hasn't let go of me. He hasn't given up on me. And I can see the growth. I can see the progress. But sometimes I still get really disappointed and just not always hitting the mark right on cue. And that can be defeating sometimes, and I have to really constantly reject that mindset and hold on to the only thing I can, which I know is Jesus. But I just wanted to share a couple of verses that have been getting me through this time of my life. And I hope that it can hopefully speak some life into some of you guys that might be going through some similar seasons. But Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." God doesn't distance himself from us when we're going through pain. Actually, he draws near to us the most when we're going through all that pain. That's what the pain is actually there for, so that we can get closer to him. And see, that psalm was written by King David when he was going through a really hard time in his life. See, God had told David that he was going to be king when he was just a young boy. And I'm sure he had no idea what that journey was going to look like. And I'm sure there was times in his life when he felt like an imposter, you know. There was a time in his life when he's running for his life. He's literally just fighting to survive. The current king standing on the throne was actually trying to kill him. And for a season, he kind of walked away from God. He was going and you know, massacring cities and doing a lot of crazy things. And talk about feeling like an imposter, you know. And sometimes we miss the mark too. Sometimes we kind of fall away and we aren't totally making the right decisions. And, you know, but at the end of the day, the Bible still calls King David a man after his own heart. And that kind of is confusing to me because it's like, David was a fat sinner. He was a fornicator. He committed some of the most atrocious crimes in the Bible. So it's really hard for me to figure out, like, why was King David a man after God's heart, but, you know, the previous king wasn't? You know, it doesn't seem like their actions are that far apart. But the thing about David is that he kept fighting to get back to the Lord. Every time he fell down, he got back up and he was fighting for it. And that's what made him righteous. And at the end of the day, God called him to a certain calling. As long as David was going to continue to hold on to God, God was not going to let go of him, and God was going to continue to deliver him, and he was going to take him from one place to the next. And before you know it, David becomes king. And I'm sure he looks back and thinks, man, what a journey. Look what God has taken me from. And I think that's what makes David a righteous man, is he continues to fight. Doesn't mean he's perfect. Doesn't mean he is always having the good feelings. It's because no matter what is going on in his life, no matter if he's going through a low season or a high season, he always held on to God. Even though sometimes he was really just being dragged in the dirt, he was still holding on to the only thing that was going to get him there, and that's Jesus.